Most people think jail and prison are the same thing, but actually, they're not. They're two very different places, with different purposes, different rules, and different people inside. So let's start with jail. Jail is usually the first stop when someone is arrested. Think of it like a holding place.
Step inside,
Jails
please.
are run by local governments, like the county sheriff or the city police department. People in jail are usually there for one of two reasons. First, they are waiting for their trial, meaning they haven't been found guilty yet. Second, they are serving a short sentence, usually less than 1 year, for smaller crimes, also called misdemeanors. So jail is more like a temporary place. It's not designed for long stays. People are always coming and going. Imagine this. Someone gets arrested for shoplifting or drunk driving. The police bring them to jail. If they can't pay bail, they stay in jail until their trial. If the judge later gives them a sentence of a few months, they might just serve it in the same jail. That's how jail works. It's local, it's short-term, and it's full of people at different stages of their cases. Some are innocent until proven guilty. Others are guilty of smaller crimes. It's a mix, and that's why jails often feel crowded and chaotic. Now let's move to prison. Prisons are very different from jails. Prisons are run by the state government or the federal government, not by the local county sheriff. Prisons are for long-term punishment. People in prison have already gone through their trial, they've been convicted of serious crimes called felonies, and their sentences are longer than 1 year. So while jails are like waiting rooms, prisons are more like the final destination. People stay there for years, sometimes decades, sometimes even for life. Unlike jails, prisons are built for long-term living. That doesn't mean life is easy, but it means prisons have more structure than jails. Inmates usually have routines, work programs, classes, and other activities depending on the prison. For example, if someone is convicted of armed robbery and the judge gives them 15 years, that person won't stay in the local county jail to serve that sentence. They'll be moved to a state prison to serve that sentence. See the difference? Jail is short-term and local. Prison is long-term and run at the state or federal level. Another big difference that people don't always know is that prisons come in different types based on security levels. Not all prisons are the same. Some are more open, while others are very strict. Here's a breakdown. Minimum security prisons are often called camp-like. They're for nonviolent offenders. Inmates usually have jobs, go to classes, and have more freedom to move around. Medium security prisons are stricter. There are fences, more guards, and more rules. Inmates can still work or take classes, but security is tighter. Maximum security prisons are for dangerous inmates. They have tall walls, barbed wire, guard towers, and strict control. Inmates are often locked in their cells for 23 hours a day with very little human contact. So prison life depends a lot on what kind of prison you're in. A minimum security prison can look very different from a supermax. Now, you might wonder, why do people always confuse jail and prison? The answer is simple. In everyday talk, people just say jail for everything. For example, if someone is sentenced to 20 years in prison, a lot of people will say he's in jail. Also in TV shows and movies, the words are often mixed up. But in real life, they mean different things. If you ever talk to someone in law enforcement or the justice system, they'll be very clear about the difference. Here's one more difference to help you imagine it. Jails often look like holding cells. They're smaller, crowded, and people are moving in and out all the time. Prisons are usually much bigger. They have cell blocks, yards, cafeterias, and different sections for different inmates. They're designed for long-term stays, so there's more structure, even though it's still prison.
Life in jail and prison is very different, and to really understand the difference, we need to look at what daily life is like in both. Jail is often described as chaotic. Because people are always coming in and out, there's a constant turnover of inmates. One day, someone might be sharing a cell with the person who's only there for a night because they couldn't pay bail, and the next day, the cellmate could be someone waiting for trial on a serious charge. This constant change creates a lot of stress and unpredictability. There are usually fewer programs in jail, less access to education, fewer work opportunities, and very limited resources. Many people in jail spend their time just waiting for trial, waiting for bail, waiting for sentencing. That waiting can feel endless. In prison, life looks different. Because inmates are serving long-term sentences, the system is more structured. There's a routine that repeats every day. In the morning, inmates wake up, eat breakfast, and then go about their assigned activities. Some may work in the prison kitchen, laundry, or workshops. Others might attend classes, join training programs, or even continue their education. There are also set times for exercise, meals, and rest. Of course, life in prison is still very tough, but compared to jail, it is more organized and less unpredictable. People in prison tend to find a rhythm to their days, even if it's not a rhythm they want. Now let's talk about myths, because there are a lot of misconceptions people have about jail and prison. The first myth is that jail and prison are the same. We've already seen that they're not. Jail is short-term, local, and meant for people waiting for trial or serving less than a year. Prison is long-term and meant for those convicted of serious crimes. The second myth is that everyone in jail has been convicted. That's not true at all. In fact, most people in jail are there simply waiting for their trials. They have not been found guilty yet, and in many cases, they might never be. About 70% of people in jails fall into this category. The third myth is that prison is always worse than jail. That might sound true because prison sentences are longer, but it's not always the case. Jail can be much harder in some ways because of the overcrowding, lack of programs, and the constant movement of people in and out. The stress of waiting and uncertainty makes jail a very harsh experience too. Let's add some facts and numbers to make this clearer. Every year, over 10 million people in the United States pass through jails. That's a huge number. But prisons only take in around 600,000 new inmates each year. At any given time, more than 1.2 million people are in prison across the country. And remember, most people in jail are not convicted. They are waiting for their case to be heard. These numbers show how big the difference is between the two systems. Now, what about internationally? In the United States, we make a clear distinction between jail and prison. But in many other countries, they don't always use both terms. They might just use one word to mean both. For example, in some countries, the word prison is used for anyone locked up, whether it's short-term or long-term. So when you're outside the U.S., the meaning can change depending on the country. This is why understanding the difference is important, especially if you follow news or documentaries from around the world. Let's bring this back to daily life comparisons. In jail, the atmosphere is tense. People don't know how long they'll stay, they don't know the outcome of their case, and resources are limited. Food is basic, time outside is limited, and access to family or lawyers can be stressful. Because of this, mental health issues are very common in jails. In prison, while the environment is still harsh, there's more routine. Meals come at the same time every day. Work or school programs fill part of the day. Inmates often form groups or communities. Some prisons even allow religious services, therapy, or vocational training to help prepare for life after release. Of course, this varies depending on the prison, but the point is that prisons, unlike jails, are designed for long-term living. Here's another thing worth mentioning. Prisons have security levels, and life changes depending on what kind of prison you're in. In minimum security prisons, the daily routine might not feel as strict. Inmates might work outside jobs, wear normal clothing, and even move around more freely. In maximum security prisons, life is extremely strict. Movement is tightly controlled, and security is everywhere. In supermax prisons, life is basically isolation. Inmates spend nearly all day in their cells with very little contact with other people. So the experience of prison can vary a lot depending on where someone is sent. Now let's think about the human side. Imagine the stress of being in jail. You don't know when you'll go to trial. You might be innocent, but you're stuck waiting. You share crowded cells with strangers. Every day feels uncertain. Compare that to prison. Yes, prison sentences are long and the crimes are serious, but once you're in, you at least know your sentence. You know your routine. You know how long you'll be there. And some people even use that time to get an education, learn a trade, or prepare for life after release. That doesn't make it good, but it does make it different from the constant stress of jail. So here's a question for you. Would you rather spend 6 months in a county jail with overcrowding, stress, and uncertainty? Or would you rather serve 3 years in prison with routines, programs, and a known sentence?
It's a tough choice, and it really makes you think about how different these places are. To sum it all up, jail is short-term, local, and chaotic. Prison is long-term, structured, and run by the state or federal government. Jail is full of people waiting for their trials, while prison is full of people serving their sentences. Both are difficult, but in very different ways. So next time you hear someone say jail when they mean prison, you know the difference. And hopefully, you now understand how life changes depending on where someone ends up. Thanks for watching, and if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Which do you think is harder to survive, jail or prison?